credit for its theater scene. In fact, the regional theater movement was born here 75 years ago, right at Arena Stage. I'm Maria Manuela Goyanes. I'm the artistic director of Woolly Mammoth Theater Company. At Woolly Mammoth, we use theater to give people experiences that they have never had before, and hopefully do it with a good amount of laughter thrown in. Brandon Jacobs Jenkins is a very important writer for Woolly Mammoth. Woolly Mammoth is rare in the American theater, but it feels exactly right in DC, a place where the smartest minds in the world converge to try to make things happen that have never been done before. This is the Tony Award. In 2022, I became a Tony-winning producer because of Maria's production of A Strange World. Let me tell you, that is not something my parents ever saw coming. Oh, hey! Growing up the daughter of immigrants, theater wasn't on my horizon. I was shy, believe it or not. I would hide in books. Before I got to Woolly, I did a lot of Shakespeare. And turns out, DC has many Shakespeare companies. There's the Folger Theater, built in 1932. Yay! Go up on the stage, come on the stage. Okay. It's the first replica in North America of an Elizabethan theater. And when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, that all the world will be in love with night. The theater sits inside of the Folger Shakespeare Library, which is so much more than a library. 15-year-old Maria always geeks out when I am there because they have amazing editions of Shakespeare's folios. I mean, it's really cool. And a grimoire, which I had never heard of, but has like magic spells in it. And even a printing press. Oh, wow. I'm a first-generation Latina. I grew up going to the community center to do dance and gymnastics while my dad worked and my mom went to night school. So many theaters take over arts education in our communities, and they are second homes for these kids and families. Gala Hispanic does this with their Paso Nuevo program, in addition to all the amazing bilingual work they do on their stage. I think everyone knows DC as a government town, or for all the museums and Library of Congress, but it is definitely also a theater town. When I moved to DC in 2018, I was coming here to do exactly what I intended to do when I got into theater, to tell bold and courageous stories. And there's no better place to do that than our nation's capital. I never imagined having a career in the performing arts, let alone be one of its leaders. Only in America is my story possible, and only in DC will you find such a diverse theater scene. From the leadership to the stage and everything in between, DC is setting the stage for the future of the American theater. That could only happen here in DC.
Creating while Black means freedom. Creating while Black means responsibility.
Preservation of culture, the celebration of culture, like loving who we are.
Molding the future in a way that honors our ancestors.
Creating while Black is radical.
Parts of the population that won't embrace that because they don't understand it.
Black people everywhere are trying to make sense of what's happening to our communities.
What is the city becoming? They're pushing us out as much as possible, but despite gentrification, we're still here. We need to push back and fight back.
From the city that made me love you forever for it. Hope you celebrate every moment forever and know it. You made me what I am, you made me what I'm not. They gon' love you a little different when you at the top.
Creating while Black is the blueprint for the next level of art.
And I want the city to know that.
At Zuri, we believe stories are what make us human. They are the only force capable of changing the world. They shape cultures, build connections, and inspire movements. We craft narratives that matter.
a countless amount of guys who kind of found a niche in coaching as a way to be able to give back to this community.
I wanted to hang with the guys in the street. I wanted to be driving the Monte Carlos and deucing the quarters.
There's nothing like being surrounded by dozens of people just trying to push through.
I completed this goal that I've had, and it's changed my life in so many different ways. Everything it took to get there, and the people that you did it with.
Let us tell your story. It's 2025, and I feel like whatever progress this country has made to becoming a more perfect union is becoming undone. It seems fitting that this undoing would happen in D.C. The reason? D.C. is unapologetically black. The original chocolate city. D.C. has always been a paradoxical place. The nation's capital, the symbol of freedom and democracy, not just for U.S. citizens, but for the world. The story of America is incomplete. D.C. is a beautiful city because it represents the best of what America could be. People from all over the world come here with purpose and promise and filled with hope.
A place where the smartest minds in the world converge to try to make things happen that have never been done before.
A space that celebrates all the different parts of who I am, who my children are, who my family is. Most importantly, the norm is the world.
There are so many communities that live in harmony with one another here.
This is our heartbeat. Community, food, go-go.
I like that DC has something to be proud of, and it looked like that's what a bunch of people from our tribe produce. How can you not be inspired by that? This is DC authentic.
DC doesn't always get enough credit for its theater scene. In fact, the regional theater movement was born here 75 years ago, right at Arena Stage. I'm Maria Manuela Goyanes. I'm the artistic director of Woolly Mammoth Theater Company. At Woolly Mammoth, we use theater to give people experiences that they have never had before, and hopefully do it with a good amount of laughter thrown in. Brandon Jacobs Jenkins is a very important writer for Woolly Mammoth. Woolly Mammoth is rare in the American theater, but it feels exactly right in DC, a place where the smartest minds in the world converge to try to make things happen that have never been done before. This is the Tony Award. In 2022, I became a Tony-winning producer because of Woolly Mammoth's production of A Strange Loop. Let me tell you, that is not something my parents ever saw coming. Oh, hey! Growing up the daughter of immigrants, theater wasn't on my horizon. I was shy, believe it or not. I would hide in books. Before I got to Woolly, I did a lot of Shakespeare. And turns out, DC has many Shakespeare companies. There's the Folger Theater, built in 1932. Yay! Go up on the stage, come. Okay. It's the first replica in North America of an Elizabethan theater. And when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, that all the world will be in love with night. The theater sits inside of the Folger Shakespeare Library, which is so much more than a library. 15-year-old Maria always geeks out when I am there because they have amazing editions of Shakespeare's folios. I mean, it's really cool. And a grimoire, which I had never heard of, but has like magic spells in it. And even a printing press. Oh, wow. I'm a first-generation Latina. I grew up going to the community center to do dance and gymnastics while my dad worked and my mom went to night school. So many theaters take over arts education in our communities, and they are second homes for these kids and families. Gala Hispanic does this with their Paso Nuevo program, in addition to all the amazing bilingual work they do on their stage. I think everyone knows DC is a government town, or for all the museums and Library of Congress, but it is definitely also a theater town. When I moved to DC in 2018, I was coming here to do exactly what I intended to do when I got into theater, to tell bold and courageous stories. And there's no better place to do that than our nation's capital. I never imagined having a career in the performing arts, let alone be one of its leaders. Only in America is my story possible, and only in DC will you find such a diverse theater scene. From the leadership to the stage and everything in between, DC is setting the stage for the future of the American theater. That could only happen here in DC.
Creating while black means freedom. Creating while black means responsibility.
Preservation of culture, the celebration of culture, like loving who we are.
Molding the future in a way that honors our ancestors.
Creating while black is radical.
Parts of the population that won't embrace that because they don't understand it.
Black people everywhere are trying to make sense of what's happening to our communities.
What is the city becoming? They're pushing us out as much as possible, but despite gentrification, we're still here. We need to push back and fight back.
From the city that made me love you forever for it. Hope you celebrate every moment, forever ignore it. You made me what I am, you made me what I'm not. They gon' love you a little different when you at the top.
Creating While Black is the blueprint for the next level of art.
And I want the city to know that.
All right. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, we're live.
Alrighty, good evening DC and welcome to the DC Fair Elections Primary Attorney General Debate. I am your moderator, Dr. LaJoy Johnson-Law. I am the elected Ward 8 State Board of Education representative, so shout out to the great Ward 8. And I'm just so excited to be here, and we thank you for tuning in. So tonight, we have two candidates vying for the Attorney General seat. We will be covering many issues this evening and ask that candidates be mindful of your time to ensure that you all are heard, okay? Additionally, each candidate will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements. Responses will be 45 seconds, and rebuttals, when allowed, will be 30 seconds. So, let's get into it. Let's meet our candidates. Tonight, and I'm going in alphabetical order. I don't want anyone to say Dr. LaJoy was being favorite. No. So we're going to go one way for opening, and then we're going to go the opposite way for closing. All right. So tonight we have Attorney General Brian Schwab, who is currently the Attorney General for the District of Columbia and is seeking re-election. A third-generation Washingtonian, he has a background as a federal prosecutor and also in the private practice. Attorney General Schwab, we will start with you for your opening 1-minute statement. Welcome.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much. As said, I'm D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab, a third-generation Washingtonian, a husband, a father of 3 amazing grown women who my wife Mickey and I raised in this city. I believe deeply in the promise of the District of Columbia. For the past 3.5 years, I've had the honor to serve as DC's independent elected Attorney General, fighting every day to make DC a safer, fairer, stronger place for people to live. I fought back against a hostile federal government. I stood up to powerful corporate interests. I've gone after slumlords and landlords colluding to raise already too high rents. I've made sure construction workers and janitors and hospitality workers get the pay and benefits they've earned. I've protected our environment from polluters and held accountable those who profited from the opioid epidemic. I've worked to make DC safer, holding violent juvenile offenders and dangerous drivers accountable, working to keep illegal guns off our streets, and working to make sure victims of crime get closure, working to address the underlying reasons crimes happen in the first place. I'm proud of the work my team and I have done and that we've been able to accomplish. We've taken on tough cases and won, we've taken on tough issues, and we've delivered results. But there's a lot more work to do. I'm committed to staying in this fight, continuing to use the law to make people's lives safer, stronger, and more affordable. That's why I'm running for re-election and why I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab. So, Mr. Simkowitz, this is what we're going to do. Our time was not running, so I'm going to give you a little extra time to be fair. So if we could give him 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock, please. Can we do that? All right, so next candidate, you guys. We also have Attorney J.P. Simkowitz. Y'all, I practice his name. I got it right. I just want y'all to know, D.C., I am proud, okay? He is an attorney and a 4th-term Factory Neighborhood Commissioner in Ward 3 in the Foxhall neighborhood. He's a 5th-generation D.C. resident. He is running on issues including public safety and government accountability. If we can give him 1 minute and 30 seconds, just to be fair on the clock piece, I would be grateful. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Dr. LaJoy. My name is J.P. Simkowitz. I am a 5th-generation resident of the District of Columbia. I've been elected 4 times as the ANC Commissioner for the Foxhall area in Ward 3. I'm running for Attorney General of the District of Columbia because I think that we have been in a crime crisis for the entire time Mr. Schwab's been in office, and we haven't been able to climb out of that. I'm the perfect candidate because for 32 years I've been a practicing attorney, and I have fought for smoke-free DC. I was one of the 5 people on the board, which we achieved a smoke-free DC. And then we went to Maryland and Virginia are now smoke-free. I fought the Russian and the U.S. government in the Kononikin case when Vladimir Putin wanted the U.S. government to return my client Alexander Kononikin back to the Soviet Union in the Russian Federation. I prevailed and saved his life. I was the lawyer in the Redskin pedestrian ban case where Dan Snyder in PG County wanted to prevent people from walking to FedEx Field on game days. I am the person that can uniquely handle this job, and I thank you for your attention.
You still have 30 seconds left.
It's okay.
All right. We got to be fair now, y'all. All right, so let's get into our court questions. So this round, we're going to have 1-minute responses, and you can get a 30-second follow-up or rebuttal. I just ask that you, if you have a pen, raise your pen or calmly raise your hand. You each get one, and then after that, we move on to the next question. All right. And then, Mr. Simkowitz, I'm actually going to start with you with this one. See, and there's my timer. Fix it, Jesus. All right. Public safety and juvenile justice. Y'all knew this was first. Come on. It's a hot topic right now, and an important one. The Attorney General plays a unique role in the district's justice ecosystem, particularly when it comes to our youth. How should the Attorney General's office approach juvenile crime in a way that prioritizes accountability while also addressing root causes such as trauma, unmet mental health needs, and system gaps? And how would you coordinate with local agencies and the federal government to ensure a consistent and effective approach? And please be specific with your answers. Attorney Simkowitz, we'll start with you.
The Attorney General of the District of Columbia prosecutes juvenile crime. it is critical that every juvenile crime be prosecuted so that we achieve the data that we need in order to give the children the services that they're entitled to once they're convicted. If we don't do that, which I believe is not happening today, we have no accountability for the public who are the victims of this crime. And more importantly, the children do not get the help that they need. Without convictions, we do not have the ability to provide the help that the kids need. We need to work with our federal law enforcement partners, including the DC Attorney, the Attorney General's office in the federal government system. And if we don't do that, we're neglecting a huge resource. We should be asking, in fact, demanding resources from the federal government to surge help to these neighborhoods where a lot of crime is being committed. And if we don't do that, again, the neighborhood suffers, the children suffer, and the public suffers.
Perfect timing. All right. And sorry if the timer's so loud. We're having some technical difficulties, so we're taking it old school, which is weird to say because it's an iPhone. Anyway, Attorney General Schwab, to you, if you need me to repeat the question, let me know.
No, I think I got it.
All right.
One of the #1 priorities for my office over the last 4 years has been public safety. And of course, juvenile crime plays a critical aspect of what it means to make sure that every resident in the District of Columbia feels safe in their neighborhood. What we're doing with respect to juvenile criminal justice is holding young people accountable when they commit crimes. As prosecutors, the juvenile justice system is different than the adult system. There are juvenile confidentiality laws that have restrictions in terms of what we talk about publicly, but what we have put out are our aggregate statistics. As Attorney General, I've prosecuted north of 85% of the violent criminal offenses that MPD has brought to our office when we have sufficient admissible evidence to make our case and prove our case. But we also have to make sure that young people get the resources they need when we hold them accountable. And I've been leaning into that aspect as well, because the recidivism rates in the District of Columbia, in my view, have been too high for too long. That's why I introduced the ROAD Act, which the DC Council unanimously passed, to make sure that young people, when they are committed to DURS, are getting prompt services so that they stay out of trouble, get back on the right track, and are safer to the community.
Thank you both so much. And we're going to do a follow-up question, okay? So we're going to do, just for the timer's sake, we're going to do a minute for this one too until we get that up and running.
Can I rebut the last answer?
You can. Hold on, wait a minute. I'm on double duty for a second. Hold on. Let Dr. LaJoy give you 30 seconds. Hold on 1 second. All right. Attorney Simkowitz, go right ahead.
Mr. Schwab said one of the priorities, crime should be the #1 priority that the Office of the Attorney General faces. While there may be confidentiality considerations, that shouldn't result on statistics where the name of the potential violator is blacked out. And prosecuting 85% of the cases brought by the police department ignores the fact that many of the cases were never prosecuted or were never put forth to the Attorney General because there's a pattern of the Attorney General not supporting the police officers.
Thank you.
So look, very quickly.
30 seconds, Attorney
the Attorney General
Schwab.
If you're running for Attorney General, you need to know that, of course, public safety is one aspect of the job. And it's broader than criminal prosecution. It's also making sure our community is safe in a comprehensive way, our environment, our streets. But we also have to think about affordability. We have affordability crises in our city that the law needs to be put to use to. And we have a federal government that is more hostile to DC and DC home rule than in the 250 years of our country's history. The Attorney General's job is one that is comprehensive in nature and requires an AG to lead in multiple spaces, including in the space of juvenile prosecution.
Thank you so much. And just to keep on this subject just for one quick second, how would you all support violence interruption support? So again, crime is also a public health issue, right? It's a education issue. It's a socioeconomic issue. And so, yes, you are the Attorney General is the legal counsel for the district, right, and has legal capacity and legal tools. What legal tools would you use to prevent the crime? We'll start with you, AG Schwab.
Well, part of the job of being a prosecutor for juvenile crime is recognizing that there are no young people that come into the criminal justice system that have not somehow been failed by other aspects of our system, whether they're our education system, they're carrying trauma and learning loss, and we have to recognize what the underlying causes of crime are, housing instability, financial exploitation, and try to address those so we don't have repeating crime. I know a lot about violence interruption work as part of a comprehensive approach to stopping particularly retaliatory gun violence. And I'm happy if we have some more time to talk about the work my office has done and that I've led in connection with our Cure the Streets program and violence interruption programs across the city.
Thank you, AG Schwab. Attorney Simkowitz?
There's been a failure
30 seconds.
Oversight at the violence interruption program. In fact, last week, I believe the Attorney General's office got a judgment against one of the violence interrupter programs for fraud. There has to be accountability of those programs. But of course,
I agree.
The most important thing is to stop the violence before it happens. And that's why if I were elected Attorney General, I would be in the schools. I would be looking at each student that is a potential background that could lead to crime. I would surge resources and surge help to that.
Thank you, Attorney Simkowitz. All righty.
Can I rebut for a moment?
So,
I want to just say that
30 seconds.
That answer reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of the way the criminal justice system works. And for anybody to claim that they're going to run for Attorney General and start looking into the records of our young people who are in schools to try to scout out who the prosecutor and the police are going to pay attention to, not only is dangerous, but it fundamentally misunderstands the laws of our city. That is not what we need in an Attorney General.
I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
The schools are the best place to start. You get reports from the school that there's a student in need, whether it's because of housing instability, lack of food, an unsafe environment. Those are the people that we should be trying to help urgently and before we do anything else, because that will stop the crime before it happens.
Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to switch topics for a little bit, and thank you both for being lively. That was great, like the technology decided to not work with this, but we still made it through, and we're going to keep on going. So
there's one
I thank y'all for your flexibility.
Law that applies in every jurisdiction, and it's Murphy's Law. And so if the technology can fail on you, it's going to fail.
We're going to keep going, y'all. All right, so let's focus on consumer protection and worker rights. That's been another hot topic that's been going on in the district, especially with everything happening in the last year with the new administration coming in. For many residents, the Attorney General's office is the first line of defense when something goes wrong, whether it's wage theft, predatory practices, or just unfair business conduct. How would you ensure your office not only enforces the law, but makes it easier for residents to access support, report violations, and see meaningful outcomes from enforcement actions? And Attorney Simkowitz, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. Over the years, I've had the opportunity as a commissioner to call the Attorney General's office, and you get a voicemail when you call that office for the first time. I would make sure that the first person you speak to is a human being and not a machine. And I'd make sure that that is available in the languages that are primarily spoken here in the District of Columbia: English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Ethiopian, Amharic. The people that are subject most to abuses in the workplace are people that feel that they do not have a voice. And I would make sure that I would give them a voice. And if they come to me with a wage and hour violation, I would make sure that I have a staff member talk to them and find out if the problem's focused on them individually or if it's a more comprehensive problem that needs to be dealt with and handle it appropriately.
Okay. And then just a really quick follow-up to you, Attorney Simkowitz. You said you were talking about answering the phone. Are you saying that there would be someone there, if you were elected, to answer the phone in every single language every time any 700,000 residents would call?
Well, I can tell you, when I call most of the departments of the District of Columbia, you can always zero out to a live person to triage. So there would be a person answering the phone as part of that triage process, and they would direct you to civil litigation, the commercial division, family services, whatever department of the Attorney General's office, to make sure that at least on the first time a live person triages the call. So yes, and sometimes that would involve sending to a language that is comfortable in the person that calls.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure we're clear for our viewers. Attorney General Schwab, we're going to give you a minute.
Sure. Well, there's two aspects to how we protect people from being scammed, and particularly at a time when it's so hard to afford our lives, when people are being taken advantage of, when they're spending money for things that they think they're supposed to get but not getting it, when they're hit with junk fees and drip pricing. We have to aggressively hold those types of economic actors accountable, and I have done that. And my record speaks for itself on that. We have gone after those employers who are exploiting their workers, who are depriving them of the wages and benefits that they're entitled to. Because that's an affordability issue. When a working family doesn't have the full pay that they've earned, it makes it a lot harder to pay their bills. And so we will continue to aggressively do that. And I encourage everybody watching to look at our record and go to our website and see the kind of results we have delivered for seniors and consumers and workers. We also have a consumer and tenant response line where people are calling us every day. Last year alone, 9,000 DC residents called and asked us to help them resolve small claims and issues, and we returned more than $1.6 million to DC residents. We are being responsive.
Thank you,
with real
Attorney
human
General
beings
Schwab.
answering the call.
But I do have a follow-up question
Please.
for you. Are you able to give the audience some examples of the employers that you went after that were not doing what they were supposed to be doing for the public?
We have protected construction workers who are showing up on construction sites and being misclassified as independent contractors or having their wages stolen. We've worked in the hospitality industry, people who are working in restaurants, janitors, housekeepers who are cleaning the hotel rooms that drive tourism in our economy, the gig economy, people who are trying to pick up a couple extra bucks driving and delivering food and not having the pay given to them. We have tried to take a comprehensive approach to wage theft in our city to try to make clear that all businesses compete on a level playing field and pay their workers.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab. All right,
Can I follow up on that?
You have 30 seconds. Attorney Simkowitz, go right ahead, 30 seconds.
Over my 32-year legal career, I've had numerous cases where employees of companies have been treated unfairly by their employers. And when I say treated unfairly, they've had workman's comp issues with being injured on the job, or they haven't been paid the proper salary that they're entitled to. And I've protected each and every one of them over 32 years.
Thank you so much. All right, so it's a lot of subjects that we got to cover. So I can't be the State Board of Education rep, you guys, and not ask you about education. So we're going to have a couple on education, okay? All right, so one of the questions that we have is the Attorney General serve as, again, for the public, the district's chief legal officer. How should the office ensure that district agencies such as DCPS, DC Public Schools, and OSSI, which is our Office of the State Superintendent of Education for our viewers, are meeting their legal obligations, particularly for students with disabilities? And what tools are available to address systemic compliance issues when they arise? Attorney Simkowitz, I'm going to start with you.
Well, as a commissioner, I've had numerous cases where constituents have called me where they have special needs children that they have to sue the DC government in order to get the proper services for their student. And in many of these cases, the DC government, because they do not offer the needs, the special needs that the students have, they're forced to send those children to school at private schools or other public schools outside of the jurisdiction. And that just costs a fortune. That's a waste of public resources when we should be providing these services within the District of Columbia itself. And, I can tell that over the years, there's a lot of children out there that have special needs that shouldn't have to resort to suing the DC government for this. Thank you.
All right. Attorney General Schwab.
So it's been a high priority for me as Attorney General to recognize the role of being the chief law officer of the city is, of course, to defend the District of Columbia when it gets sued in a variety of issues, including in special education issues where parents believe their children are not getting the services under an IEP that the law demands they get. Part of the job of being the Attorney General is to defend the district against claims, but also to work with the agencies across the government to make sure they do comply with the law, and where they have systemic obstacles that they're struggling to deal with, that they think through problems and figure out how do we get to real resolutions. That's the ethos that I've brought to the Office of Attorney General. We are not defending cases that are frivolous. We are not defending cases where the District of Columbia doesn't have a defense. What we're trying to do is work within the system of our client relationship with an agency to try to solve problems for parents and the children. There are some very difficult issues confronting DCPS that our new mayor and our new counsel are going to have to really dig into to try to help. But when it comes to the legal work of my office,
thank you,
we're
Attorney
trying to
General
solve
Schwab. Now, I'm going to push on each of you, and Attorney General Schwab, we'll start with you. Just to can we give them 30 seconds, please? Again, we know the AG is the chief legal officer, right? And you're defending DC. We get that. And of course, you don't want anyone suing the district. So how will you all really work with like the lawyers at DCPS and just DCPS itself to ensure the students are getting with disabilities are getting what they need? And can you be a little more concrete with your answers? Attorney General Schwab, we'll start with you, 30 seconds.
Well, while I can't talk about the specifics of cases, because there's some very difficult cases that are going on, I can tell you that good lawyers are not just standing up in court and defending the claims in court, which all clients have a right to. So when DCPS or OSSI is being sued and our office is defending them, they are getting the zealous representation that the law entitles to them. But we are also behind the scenes working with the agency counsel and operational people in the agencies to try to figure out why the problems are occurring and get them to stop happening.
Thank you so much. Attorney Simkowitz?
This is an issue.
Can we give him 30 seconds, please? Go ahead.
This is an issue that predates Mr. Schwab being in office. This has gone on for years. And part of the role of the Attorney General's office is to counsel the departments and agencies of the government to make sure that there are no problems that lead to a litigation, lead to a lawsuit. And as a result, I would be working with the departments and agencies to find the things that have led to litigation against the city and prospectively fix those problems before they go to court.
Thank you so much. All right, keeping on education for a second, but we're going to talk about another vulnerable population. Y'all know we have to talk about immigration enforcement and how it's affecting our schools. It's something that we all unfortunately have seen on the news and on social media. So, and this is going to be a minute. We are already seeing the negative effects of immigration enforcement on school communities, including student attendance and pre-K applications. Research from Brookings and other links for sending protections for schools, churches, and hospitals to poor mental health, lower test scores. What will you do to protect and defend the immigrant community as they go to school, as they walk from school, and go home to their after-school activities? Let's start with, it's only two of you, and I feel like we've been going back and forth. So, Attorney Simkowitz, we'll start with you.
A child going to school or a patient going to the hospital should never fear that accessing these services results in their deportation, whether they're here legally or not. So I would make sure that as long as we have students going to school, regardless of their status, I would make sure that that would be something that's a protected activity for them to do. Same thing with churches, same thing with going to the hospital or a medical doctor. Those things have to be protected. If they're not protected, then children are not getting an education. And let's be frank, if they're here, they're here. They're not going back to any country. So we have to make sure that they're educated because that's in the best interest, not only the District of Columbia and the student, but the entire United States as a whole.
Thank you. Attorney General Schwab, we're going to give you 1 minute on education, our kids, and just the unfortunate immigration issue.
Well, look, the federal government's approach to immigration enforcement has been cruel. It's been counterproductive. It's making us and our country less safe, less healthy, less well-educated. And I agree 100% with Mr. Simkowitz. The problem is, as Attorney General, you don't have the ability to declare that some place is now a safe place, churches, schools, hospitals. That question has been taken away from us, and we can talk about the larger question of how we don't have control over that issue and being able to keep families safe. But not only is the immigration enforcement making us less safe, less healthy, and less well-educated, it is illegal. And I'll tell you what I've done. I've gone to court. Day one on birthright citizenship, when the president tried to rewrite out of the 14th Amendment birthright citizenship, I went to court to sue to stop that with other AGs around the country. I have gone to court to protect the TPS status and the Dreamer status that protects people. I have gone to court to make the argument that the federal government cannot condition funding to our city based on us cooperating with federal immigration enforcement. And
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab.
To protect DC residents, whether they're documented or not.
Thank you. And Attorney General Schwab, we'll do a follow-up question, and again, on the immigration issue. there were many schools that were affected, and they didn't feel supported. I know your office put out legal guidance, but that's not necessarily helpful if you're not a lawyer. And so what specifically did your office do to really support our schools?
Well,
and we'll give you 30 seconds.
Right. I would say that putting out Know Your Rights and guidance to the schools was very helpful, and I received a lot of calls from principals and teachers thanking us. DCPS and OSSI didn't do it. And it came to our office to have to put out the guidance because we heard directly from teachers who didn't know what it meant to have an administrative warrant versus a judicial warrant. And there were legal concepts that needed to be broken down into plain English so that folks who went to work to teach kids or to be counselors at kids, if they had to step up and figure out whether an ICE agent could come into the school, knew a little bit more than they did without our guidance to respond.
Thank you so much. Attorney Simquist, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to see if you have a different approach.
I believe that there should be a hotline for a nurse to call, a teacher to call at the Attorney General's office. And if that's why I believe that you have to have somebody answer the phone, because if you don't have anybody answering the phone, they're going to call back later, but it's going to be too late. And that way, the administrator at the school knows that they will be supported by the Attorney General's office with the correct advice that's given to them that protects the undocumented individual.
Thank you both so much. All righty, we're going down our line of issues here. You all are doing great. I hope y'all are doing okay at home, but we are doing great here. All right, another hot topic. Y'all know what's coming. Housing. My God. Fix it, Jesus. Please fix it. Okay. Access to safe, stable housing continues to be a major concern for many district residents, particularly when it comes to, again, we've talked about this, negligent property management, unsafe conditions, and even accessibility barriers for residents with disabilities and our seniors. How would you use the Attorney General's authority to hold landlords and property owners accountable while also ensuring tenants are aware of and able to access their rights? And Attorney General Schwab, we'll start with you. You have 1 minute.
Look, housing affordability has been a major priority of my office over the last 3.5 years. There's not a week that goes by where we're not out there holding slumlords accountable. Slumlords who are profiting off or having their tenants living in deplorable conditions. And we've used the Consumer Protection Act. We've used our housing code to go after those landlords. And when they're repeat bad actors, I brought a lawsuit against the most notorious slumlord in the city, using our racketeering statute to try to make sure we rip out that business practice in branch and root entirely. We have to recognize that part of our housing affordability challenge in the district is that we don't have enough housing supply for the number of people who want to live here. And when you have a shortage of supply and too much demand, prices go up. Part of the way we deal with the supply issue is make sure that we don't lose existing housing stock from the inventory. And that's why we have to hold landlords accountable to making sure their units stay in habitable, code-compliant, safe condition so people can live in it. I have done that. My track record speaks for itself on that, and I will continue to do that next.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab. Attorney Simkowitz.
Thank you. As a commissioner, I did a ride-along with the 7th District Police Department, and the officer said that there were a lot of problems associated with this one property, and that they were trying to get the property cited as a nuisance property by the Attorney General's office. And that didn't happen. They were really frustrated because there were lights missing in the parking lot. There was gang activity going on outside, and they were asking for help that wasn't given. And that's really frustrating. Another thing, as a commissioner, I've had numerous cases where landlords, small landlords, have been renting houses out without a proper license from the DC Department of Buildings and DCLP. When that happens, there should be a process that's very quickly adjudicates that and gets the property into compliance. At Georgetown University, which I oversee as a commissioner, we had 100 units that were not licensed. We got it down to about 10 in just a few months.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to throw a curveball in here, especially when it comes to housing, to push us a little bit even further. You each heard each other's answers. Now, there's a candidate to candidate later, but this is a really big issue. And what we're going to do is, you heard each other's answers. You're going to take 30 seconds to basically question the answer. Okay, does that make sense? So, did you all hear each other's answers? So now you're going to ask, so Attorney General Schwab, we'll start with you because Attorney Simquist just answered. 30 seconds. What do you agree with? What don't you agree with? And you get to ask him, and then he's going to answer you.
So I'm going to ask him a question about his answer?
You are going to ask him a question about his answer. We're going to do a curveball. We got to make this a little fun, y'all. We can't, because everybody thinks Attorney General stuff, it's not as exciting as the mayor. We're going to make it exciting. And so we're going to do a little curveball. So you just heard his answer about housing. 30 seconds to ask him a question about his answer.
So I'm interested in this conversation you said you had with a police officer to actually bring a lawsuit under the nuisance statute that we have. What evidence do we need before we can, under the rules of our city, go to court and sue a property owner under the nuisance statute?
Well, you need to have sufficient documentation of the problems with the property.
What kinds of problems?
Service
what
calls,
kinds of problems?
Service calls for police, fire, and EMS. That's the number one thing that they need to do. They need to look at, if you have 200 service calls to one address, then that's obviously a problem. That was a problem in my jurisdiction as a commissioner on MacArthur Boulevard. We had a lot of service calls to one particular building because it was a nuisance property. Did anything happen? No.
So what that reveals is that Mr. Simkowitz doesn't understand what the law of our city is, because service calls do not trigger the ability to bring a lawsuit under the nuisance statute. Under our laws, unless they're changed by the council, you need a finding of guns, drugs, or prostitution. There need to be guns and drugs confiscated at a property. There need to be arrests for prostitution before you can trigger the law of the city. As Attorney General, you don't get to just make up the rules as you go. Now, if you want to go to the council and you want to get the laws changed so that nuisance is defined more broadly, the way many of us think about nuisance, you can do that. But as Attorney General, your job is to enforce the law as it exists, not to make it up.
Thank you so much. Attorney Simkowitz, it is now your turn. We're going to give you 30 seconds. You heard his answer, and even if it is a question about what he just said, that's fine too. We'll give you 30 seconds to ask a question.
One problem that a lot of my constituents have had with the Attorney General's office is that the office goes after these big rental companies with 400 units, 800 units. These are large companies, and they have good headlines because you're able to get large fines on these companies. How many small, single-unit, single-family houses have you gone after where those owners have violated our housing laws?
So part of our priority in deciding how to use the scarce resources of the Office of Attorney General is to think about the impact of the cases when we are bringing cases. Oftentimes in smaller buildings, the tenants have their own lawyers, or their problems are not as magnified as they are when you're, for example, at Marbury Plaza and you're talking about 2,500 units of people. We make these judgment calls about how to use our resources to have an impact on as many lives as we can, recognizing that we can't go after all of them. We also recognize that unlike some of the large landlords that are very well-heeled, some small mom-and-pop landlords are having trouble just paying the bills.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab.
We have to deal with that reality, too, when we're making our prosecutorial decisions.
Thank you so much.
Can I follow up with that?
You know, this is lively. We're gonna end housing here, and you get the last word. I'm gonna. We'll give you 30. We'll give you 30, Attorney Simkowitz. Let's give him 30.
The Attorney General's office has 250 lawyers and 300 staff members. They could do a lot with going after some of these small unit owners because these people, in my experience, don't have their own lawyers. They're regular people. Not everybody has a lawyer. And by going after these people, you'd set the example that this behavior is not acceptable. I have one house in my jurisdiction where the owner has been out of compliance for over 6 years. The owner still doesn't have a license after 6 years, and I've reported it to the former
Thank you,
DCRA.
Attorney Simkowitz. Thank you so much. All righty. So now we're going to go back. That was fun, right? Like, you know, come on, this is a debate. It's a little lively. All right. Another question that has come up, this came up last night as well, and I thought we should talk about it here because the Attorney General came up in last night's debate when we talk about just D.C. local autonomy and we talk about D.C. statehood. How do you all think the Attorney General should work with the mayor and the D.C. Council to present a unified legal strategy in defense of the district's autonomy? And how would you navigate situations where you may disagree on a legal approach or strategy with either the council or the mayor? Attorney Schwab, we'll start with you. We're going to give you 1 minute.
Yeah, well, look, as we all know, we've been living through the most hostile to the District of Columbia federal administration than we've ever had in our country. And it has been very important for Mayor Bowser and Chairman Mendelson and the rest of the council and I to stand shoulder to shoulder, and we have done that. Wherever we can do it, we are meeting, talking, and standing shoulder to shoulder, because that's what the residents of the district deserve, is a unified stance against a hostile government. But we also have to recognize that in our government, in our democracy, the independent attorney general is elected to be independent. And at times, there are differences of opinion between the attorney general on the one hand, the council on the other, and the mayor. We have seen that happen. That's not a bad thing. That's democracy at work. What I have tried to do as attorney general is to build working relationships with the mayor and the chairman. And we talk regularly and we work through things, all with an advancing of the interest in mind. We may not agree on what the right approach is, but we're starting from a place of trying to protect DC and DC residents. That type of ability to solve problems in collaboration with others is part of what this job requires.
Thank you. Attorney Simkowitz, we'll give you 1 minute for the same question.
12 years ago, we didn't have an elected attorney general. The attorney general was called the Corporation Counsel. It is within the ambit of the mayor. It's a great thing that we now have the attorney general elected by the people. So the attorney general represents the people, the mayor represents the people, and the council represent the people. But their definition of the people and what their duties are may diverge. So we have to work together collaboratively with those other two branches, the mayor and the council, in representing the people. I think we both agree on that. What I would try to do is have the Home Rule Act change so that the Attorney General takes over adult prosecution. We're the only state in the country that doesn't control the prosecution of our crimes, and I think that would take a unified approach between the mayor and the council to go to Congress and say, we demand that our elected official handles the crime, not just juvenile crime, but all crime. And I think we probably both agree with that as well.
Yeah, let me find an opportunity to agree.
I was going to say you both agreed, and I figured maybe we could stay here for each of you for an additional 30 seconds. Attorney Simkowitz, 30 more seconds. Can you expound on that, what you were saying about the prosecution? And then Attorney General Swab will go to you.
Exactly. As most people know, the Attorney General of D.C. only handles the juvenile crime and certain adult misdemeanors and traffic. The Home Rule Act has hindered the District of Columbia from true self-governance for 56 years, 55 years, whatever it's been, and that's bad. I would go to Congress with our new elected congressperson and fight for that. If we can't get statehood, we should try to get something more than we have right now.
Okay. Attorney General Swab, 30 seconds as well.
You're going to hear violent agreement from me on Mr. Simkowitz's point of view about this aspect of home rule. I have said it. I said it when President Biden was the president and Matt Graves was our U.S. attorney, and I've said it when President Trump is our president and Judge Pirro is our U.S. attorney. We are the only jurisdiction in the country where local crime is not prosecuted by a local prosecutor who is accountable to the people. We should change and expand home rule to include that as part of our rights. But let's just be clear, it's not up to us. It's up to the Congress. And Mr. Simkowitz has thought if it would be so easy to go and demand Congress and they would do what we ask, we would have done it a long time ago.
Thank you so much.
Can I follow up for 15 seconds?
You know what? It's just the two of you. I'm going to give you 30, Attorney Simkowitz. Go right ahead.
Part of the reason that Congress has been so opposed to the District of Columbia is because our current juvenile justice system is in shambles. As most people know, Elon Musk's staffer was the person that was assaulted brutally by a group of teens, and that directly led to the National Guard being deployed by President Trump. That's something that we should never have to be subject to. We should have a police department that's fully funded and fully staffed, and had we done that, we wouldn't be subject to President Trump and his National Guard that he unilaterally imposed on us.
I'm going to follow back up with you, 30 seconds. How do you envision fixing the juvenile justice system then?
Well, again, you prosecute all of the crime, not some of the crime. Any crime that you have, that there's a good faith basis that you have to bring the charges against a juvenile, you prosecute those crimes so that we have a record that of finding of involvement. And if you get the finding of involvement, then you can surge resources to that student. If there's no finding of involvement, you can't do that. I mean, it would violate the Constitution. You have to have convictions before you can help these kids.
All right. Attorney General Swab, I'm going to give you a chance to also follow up with this. 30 seconds.
Well, Look, I think Mr. Simkowitz's observation of why this federal government has been hostile to the city sort of misunderstands history and misunderstands what this president ran on long before any particular event happened in our city. And I think it shows either a naivete or a willful blindness to what our city is confronting at the moment. The Attorney General for our city can't bring a naivete into what's happening. Now, if you want to talk about criminal justice and juvenile justice, a prosecutor has an obligation to exercise discretion.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab.
Prosecuting every child that commits a crime is not only not what the law requires, but not what we want in a juvenile prosecutor.
Can I follow up?
I was going to give you 30 seconds to follow up. Go ahead.
Naivete. The federal government and Donald Trump knocked down the East Wing of the White House. That was shocking in the fact that the Attorney General should have been in court looking for a TRO, a temporary restraining order, preventing that construction. We knew 3 days before the trucks actually knocked down the building that was coming. The name of the Kennedy Center, where I acted in as an actor when I was in middle school, is not the Kennedy Center anymore. Unfortunately, it's got the T word in front of it. And of course, the National Guard is here. Those are things that I would have fought, and I'm not naive. I would
Thank you, Attorney Simkowitz. I gave you an extra 5 seconds because I gave Attorney General Schwab an extra 5 seconds. So I gave you each an extra 5 seconds because, again, this is an important issue. All right, let's do a quick lightning round, okay? Because they were like, we need you to do it. I said, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. All right, so this round is just 30 seconds, okay? So it's either, you know what? I'm not going to do y'all like that because when I was a candidate, I didn't like people. Don't put me in a yes or no box because I want you to answer honestly, seriously, how you feel. So it could be yes or no, yes and no, no and yes. Honestly, however you feel to answer this question is going to be completely up to you. I'm going to give you flexibility. Some people don't do that. We're not going to do that here. Amen? All right. So 30 seconds. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I need to dig in here, y'all. Let's dig in. Should the Attorney General take an active role in identifying and addressing systemic failures within district agencies? Attorney Simkowitz, let's start with you. 30 seconds.
Yes, of course. That is what we have to do. That's the role of the Attorney General. If there's systemic problems within the government or any of its agencies or departments, it's part of the role to be a counsel, to counsel those agencies into doing the right thing.
Okay. Do you have a specific agency in mind that you're thinking of?
Well, right now, I mean, we were talking about housing. I'd go after the Department of Buildings and Licensing and Consumer Protection. If the licensing and consumer protection are not addressing housing issues, then we've got to tell them, look, it's bad for the city if you don't correct the problem.
Thank you so much. And I asked that follow-up in there because you had a little time to spare. All right. Attorney General Schwab, 30 seconds.
No, JP's right. The answer is, as an Attorney General, your job is to be active, to use the law to make sure that we are making sure our city is as effective, as fair, as efficient for the residents who we serve as possible. When you see problems in your role as a lawyer, good lawyers try to solve problems. That's the role of the Attorney General, and that's what I've done over the last 3.5 years. There is no shortage of problems in the DC government, and what we learn in representing the district government is that we have to be an advocate for the government and work to make sure the government serves people better.
Thank you so much. All right, another lightning round question, 30 seconds, and Attorney General Schwab, we'll start with you. Again, we talked about this. I feel like we all know what we're going to say. Do you believe the current balance between local and federal authority in D.C. allows the Attorney General to be effective to serve its residents?
Well, we know that with respect to criminal justice, the balance doesn't work well. We have a bifurcated system, and therefore when you want to create comprehensive solutions to problems that are comprehensive in nature, having a system that splits up our prosecutorial role between a federal prosecutor and a state prosecutor doesn't work. We also know that the federal government is in our business on our budget. We know that last year when we passed a budget using our own tax dollars, we had a federal government, a hostile Congress, interfering with our ability to spend our money on things we prioritize. So the balance is not working well for DC residents. We need to reset that.
Thank you. Thank you. Attorney Simkowitz, the same question. Do you believe the current balance between local and federal authority in DC allows the Attorney General to effectively serve DC residents? We give you 30 seconds.
No, of course not. And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
The criminal code revision that was passed by the council, vetoed by the mayor, went up to Congress for the disapproval, and it was disapproved. While I may have than happy with the result of the disapproval. It really irked me as a citizen of the District of Columbia that we were subject to these people, these 535 Congress people from around the country and the President of the United States who has control over our local affairs. And that's something that no other state has.
I know it's lightning round, but I have a follow-up question. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. You said you were happy not happy about the interference, but happy that the criminal code failed. Why?
Well, the criminal code revisions were so bad that even Uncle Joe, our president, our Democrat president, had to veto that bill. And it was designed to bring down and reclassify certain crimes. And we shouldn't be reclassifying lower crimes when we're in the middle of a crime crisis. And that's what happened. It was so bad that even President Biden said enough is enough, DC Council, and vetoed it.
Okay. Attorney General Schwab, I'll give you 30 seconds as well. Do you have anything more to say about this?
We have a criminal code right now in our city that interferes with public safety because it is antiquated, it is inconsistent, and any prosecutor who knows what he or she is doing knows that when the law is unclear and the precedent is unclear, it makes it harder to make cases. There was a decade-long effort from experts to try to make sure our criminal code was brought into the current era. And the last time there was a criminal code revision in our city, many of the people who live in the city, based on being women and people of color, didn't have a chance to vote. It was a good step in terms of a reform, and it shouldn't have been something that Congress or President Biden.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab.
Can I follow up with that? Because I was a commissioner when this was going on, and I spoke out against that criminal code revision.
I'm going to give you each 30 seconds because I feel like but this is good because you know why? The public needs to understand what's going on. And so while this is still a debate, this is also still informative. So the reason I keep pushing is to ensure that our residents understand what's going on. So on this matter, I'm going to give you each 30 seconds. So here, 30. Go ahead, Attorney Simkowitz.
I agree. The criminal code might have room for improvement, but that debate happened over 3 years ago, and the council still has not corrected that mistake that they made. They could have introduced new legislation. They haven't. And they didn't because they realized that the public wants to have safe streets. The criminal code revisions, and these are the criminal code revisions from 3 years ago, didn't respect the rights of victims, and that's why my constituents said, Mr. Simkowitz, Commissioner Simkowitz, please go against this.
Yeah. Thank you. Attorney General Schwab, 30 seconds.
Well, I think that the will of the people reflected in a 10-year effort to reform the criminal code was reflected in what our council passed. And that's where Mr. Simkowitz started his answer, a respect for the democratic process. And we're having a conversation about being the chief law officer of the city. And as the chief law officer of the city, you don't get to bring your own personal preferences in about what you wish the law was or want the law to be. And the fact of the matter is that by not passing a reform that 95% of which was agreed upon by everybody has made us less safe.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab. All right. So now, come on really quick, y'all. Time check is 6:48. We're doing good. This is good. This is lively. I hope everyone at home is really feeling engaged here and feeling like they're in the room. All right. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do some personal record things, right? With, of course, you as a commissioner, Attorney Simkowitz, and of course, you as the Attorney General. And then we're going to do candidate to candidate, the real section that I had. I just thought it would be fun to kind of mix that a little bit. And then we'll do our closing statements because we're almost there. All right. So, as the incumbent, Attorney General Schwab, I'm going to start with you. Your office has pursued a number of high-profile enforcement actions, yet some residents still feel disconnected from the outcomes of those efforts. How would you ensure your work as Attorney General translates into real, visible benefits for everyday residents across all wards, especially residents in Ward 7 and 8? This came from an audience member earlier today.
I so appreciate the question, and I recognize that no matter how much we do, there's limitless amount of work to be done.
Thank you.
And that's why prioritizing resources and having a vision for how you're going to use the law to make DC safer and stronger and more affordable, to make sure that the law is being used to make people's lives better and safer, is something that the Attorney General has to bring and guide the resources of the office to do it. One thing that I saw as a need when I ran 4 years ago and what I've delivered on as AG was that there was not the kind of community engagement between the Office of Attorney General and communities all over the city to make sure that we were receiving in real time information from community members about what was happening in their lives and what they might need an attorney general to do to fight for them. I have professionalized the community engagement team, and I have so much pride in the work that that community engagement team has done, because not only are we out educating and talking to the residents about what we do, but we are hearing in real time what they need from us, and we can then respond in real time. I will continue to do that because I'm guided by listening to the residents.
Thank you so much. All right, Attorney Simkowitz, this is for personal record, so this isn't technically like a rebuttal, okay? So you have your own question. Does that make sense?
You want me to ask a question?
No. This question specifically is on personal record. So Attorney General Schwab, of course, is the incumbent. You are also an elected, you're a commissioner, so we are basically being accountable for who we are in our elected seats, okay? So your question is, you've engaged in public testimony and dialogue around crime and public safety. How would you translate those perspectives into the full scope of the Attorney General role, which includes enforcement, civil rights protections, and government accountability? I've heard you talk about accountability, and so that's why you specifically get this question.
Well, Ward 8 is very special to me because my mom grew up in Ward 8. I have several aunts and uncles that lived in Ward 8, and I enjoy going over to Anacostia, and I think it's a lively place today, unlike when I was little, when there were no shops on the streets. But it's important for us, as me as a commissioner right now, and me as Attorney General in the future, to make sure that the schools of Ward 8, the health of people of Ward 8, the mental health counseling is given to that area, because those are the areas that are desperately in need for these people that live there. And these people are our neighbors, they're our friends, and they're our family members. And when I took the oath of office 4 times as commissioner, I didn't take it to Ward 3. I took the oath of office to the city as a whole. And I believe that, and I've had a position that's well known in the community all over the city. If you have a problem that is not getting solved with your council member or your local commissioner, you can give me a call. And I've helped people from all over the city on issues that are important to them.
Thank you both so much. All righty, now we're gonna get to the real round of candidate to candidate. And so here are the rules, and you get a little extra time, okay? So you each get to ask a question of whatever question you want to ask, and you're gonna have 30 seconds to ask the question. The respondent, we're gonna give you 1 minute, okay? And Attorney Simkowitz, we're going to start with you this time.
Sure.
So you have 30 seconds to ask Attorney Schwab anything you would like, 30 seconds, and he's going to take a minute to respond to you. And you're going to look at him. You're not going to look at me.
Our police staffing is at 3,149 officers today. That's been about the same your entire tenure. Our overtime hours for the police department since October 1st is 776,000 hours, resulting in $64 million just since October. What have you done to improve the staffing of the police department so we don't have to pay overtime?
So I appreciate the question. Reflects the fact that you don't understand the role of the Attorney General versus the role of the mayor and the role of the council. The staffing of the Metropolitan Police Department, JP, I'm answering your question. The staffing of MPD is in the hands of the chief of police, hired by the mayor, confirmed by the council. We do have an overtime problem in terms of the police. We ought to recognize as a community that there is a lot of money in the budget to hire police officers, but hiring police officers, recruiting police officers today is a very difficult thing to do. I've heard chiefs of police talk about it since I've been AG and beforehand. The fact of the matter is they are going out and recruiting and finding that the federal government is paying $75,000 and $100,000 bonuses to try to lure people into the federal law enforcement as opposed to MPD. Being an MPD officer is really, really important work. It's really hard work, and we need to do everything as a city to try to recruit more police officers. But the fact of the matter is that the staffing levels and the budget levels for police is not in the bailiwick of the
Thank you, Attorney General
It's in the bailiwick
Schwab.
of the mayor.
Can I respond to that 15 seconds?
I'm going to give you 15 seconds, and we're going to allow him the same.
As a commissioner, I've asked for informal resolutions that have been passed for our staffing to go up at the MPD. This is something that the Attorney General should be down there at the council and with the mayor begging for these additional officers and stopping this overtime and helping our officers to not have to go home at night at 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Attorney Simkowitz. All right, so now we're going to switch roles. So Attorney General Schwab, you'll have 30 seconds to ask your question, and then Attorney Simkowitz will have 1 minute to respond to you. Thank you all, 30 seconds.
Well, I'm going to take a little point of privilege. LaJoy, you've been doing a great job asking questions tonight, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. You know, when I committed to running for office 4 years ago, and I look in the mirror as the AG, as a candidate for re-election, I ran an election then, and I'm running an election now based on values that are important to me. And one of the things that is very important to me is that our politics not be divisive. I don't think that the state of affairs of politics in our country today is one that we should aspire to. This kind of question that I might pose to JP to try to embarrass him or to try to stump him doesn't engage in the dialogue the way I would like to see the dialogue, so I'm going to respectfully pass on the opportunity.
You're respectfully pass. Okay. So I do want to point out, though, for the audience, it's not really to trip someone up. It is to be informative. And so, again, however anyone asks a question to whoever is running, you are also a D.C. resident. We are all D.C. residents. And this is a conversation. This is to be informative. And so if there is something where you need more clarity, you get to ask a question. If there is something where you are befuddled or confused, you get to ask a question. If there is something, again, anything. So it's not meant to really trip anybody up or be combative. We just want everyone to know that we're all DC residents here. We all love DC, and we just want to make sure that we are, that this debate is just, we have a high bar, okay? So now that we're going to do that, can we get a time check, please? It's 6:57. And so you didn't get your minute to answer.
I mean, he didn't ask a question.
You didn't ask a question. So I'm going to give you a point of privilege. This is not your closing statement, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds of something that you would just like to say since you didn't get a question.
Well, you know, I'm running because I believe in the District of Columbia. I love the District of Columbia, and this is my home. I don't have anywhere else to go to. I didn't move here from Alaska or Idaho or any place like that. And if I had been here from Idaho or Alaska, I could move back there if things didn't work out here. But I have to fight for every second that I'm here for my family, for my wife, for my mom and dad. And that's why I'm running in this race, because I think that we have better things that we can do, me as Attorney General, to stop the crime that's going on right now.
And then, Attorney Simkowitz, since you were kind of going into a closing statement, I'm going to give you actually another 30 seconds to close your statement out. Actually, go right ahead.
Again, my name is JP Simkowitz. I'm running for DC Attorney General. I've lived in DC in the 1980s, the 1990s. DC was in trouble back then, and I can see that we are in trouble today. Crime is out of control. And what I will do as Attorney General is fight every day to make our city stronger and safer for undocumented people, from people in all 8 wards, for anyone that lives here, and our visitors that come in from all around the world. Because we live in the best city in the world.
We do live in the best city in the world, and we thank you so much. Attorney General Schwab, can we give him a minute on the clock, please, for your closing statements? And again, thank you so much for both of you for being here. 1 minute.
Thank you. Look, now more than ever, DC residents deserve an AG who's not afraid to fight for them, who has the experience and the judgment and the courage to fight for them, who is ready to use the law to defend the district against the unprecedented challenges we're facing. I have a proven track record of doing just that, of fighting for DC and winning. I've taken on corporations like Amazon and TikTok and Meta and Google and Live Nation and StubHub, massive multinational companies that put profits over the people of the District of Columbia. I fought to protect workers from wage theft, seniors and consumers from being scammed, tenants from slumlords, and to protect our environment from polluters. I've worked to keep illegal guns and ghost guns off our streets and to defend the district's reasonable gun laws. And I have stood up to a federal administration that is more hostile to the district, the rule of law, and our constitutional rights than any other federal government in the 250 years of our country's history. We've accomplished a lot over the last 3.5 years, and as they say, we've got the receipts. But there's more work to do.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab.
I'm Brian Schwab. I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So we did good, y'all. We are right at time. Dr. LaJoy just got a couple of voting announcements for you, but here we're live. Can we give them a hand? Come on.
Good job, JP. Very nice job.
They did absolutely wonderful, and we thank you both so much for coming out. Now, DC, I'm coming to you. I got a couple of announcements. All right, Board of Elections should be mailing out ballots around May 11th, okay? So make sure you check the election calendar on dcboe.org, I believe. Early voting for the primary is June 8th to June 14th, okay? And of course, the primary election is on June 16th. We thank everyone for watching the DC Fair Elections debate. Again, I'm Dr. LaJoy Johnson-Law. I was your moderator. We thank you to all of our partnering organizations, and this concludes the Attorney General Primary 2026 debate. Thank you for watching, DC, and remember to everybody say vote, vote, vote on 3. 1, 2, 3. Vote, vote, vote. All right, bye, DC. We love you. Great job, guys.